I'm Frank Vaughn, and it's December 1st, 2025, and I come to you today from the sovereign Alberta within a unified Canada. I'm not really sure how that works. I'm not really sure how a place can be sovereign and yet under the thumb of the system that is Canada. I'm not really sure how Alberta can ever be sovereign in a nation where Bill C5 voted voted into law by the Conservatives and the Liberals together, which robs the provinces of their constitutionally guaranteed autonomy. I'm not really sure how a province that actually signed onto Confederation can ever be sovereign. Quebec, of course, can be sovereign because they never signed the document. But setting aside my trouble with the political gobbledygook language of a sovereign Alberta within a unified Canada, we have to talk about a certain comment. Mr. OX Dead 10cc X says, she didn't get booed. You weren't even there. He's right. I wasn't there. He's got me on that. The people booed the MOU. At the end, people wanted to shake her hand. You're buying into more of the political narrative twisting, sorry to say. Who signed the MOU? Who gave it force and effect? Who treated it like it was something real and binding? Who now pretends that it's a pipeline deal when actually what it is a taxation deal? Who pretends that it's going to be good for Alberta, that the ground will actually break sometime before 2040, contingent on the taxpayer spending $15 billion dollars to build some ridiculous carbon capture plant? The only pipeline being built in Alberta is for carbon capture. That's the tragedy of this entire deal, which locks Alberta in. If you want a pipeline, if the memorandum of understanding is going to play out, you only get a pipeline if you agree to all the net zero nonsense. If they're booing the MOU, how in your brain are they not booing Daniel Smith for signing the MOU? And why are you so resistant to holding her accountable for signing you onto a net zero, which will bury Alberta? Another narrative that has emerged, because we've already slapped down the narrative that if the pipeline is somehow binding and Alberta gets a pipeline, which all the Smith aficionados are saying there's a pipeline deal and it's great, everybody's going to get a pipeline. But at the same time, they say that the MOU is non binding. So all of the carbon nonsense in it can just be ignored. I'm thinking, as we've already dealt with, that if the carbon nonsense is non-binding, then also the pipeline is non-binding. So anyway, we've been slapping down all these talking points, and what I've noticed over the last 30 hours is another talking point has emerged, which is if Daniel Smith supports the independence movement, it will split the UCP. That's not even what it's about. This is another distraction away from the point. Daniel Smith has dedicated Alberta, recommitted Alberta to net zero in 2024 at the UCP AGM. The members voted unanimously to dispense with net zero. Anybody with any common sense at this point in history needs to abandon the entire carbon con and net zero. If you want to prosper, you've got to get away from it. Canada is in a different world. The whole world is going to move away from this nonsense, and we are still here competing like it's 1990 and 2000. We need leaders, and there's none of them. I mean, not even Pierre Poilievre. There's nobody on the horizon that dares say, you know what? It's time we just end the carbon con altogether. That's what Daniel Smith was mandated to do. This is separate from independence, folks. She can be for a sovereign Alberta within a unified Canada, whatever that means, doesn't change the fact that she has publicly supported net zero, which is nonsense. It's a non starter for Alberta. So, this talking point that she either has to support independence or be against independence is not the question as it relates to the MOU. But in addition to the aforementioned criticisms, what is this unified Canada that Daniel Smith is talking about? What is this unified Canada that every single premier in this country, except for the Quebecois, the only province that gets it right in this country, what does a unified Canada look like? First off, it's really good to see Northern Perspective finally talking about the biggest game in town, and that is the fact. I'm just going to read the title of their video. They had a live stream last night. Canada Pension Plan Concerns. What you need to know. It's got Mark Carney on the cover. People are starting to talk about something I've been telling you about for months, and that is Mark Carney is here for the pensions, that there are no protections. Go watch my video. Look through the titles of the videos about specifically CPP and public sector pensions and how easy it is for government at the federal level and at the provincial level to just legislate how that money has to be spent. They can legislate that the CPP has to buy 100 billion in treasuries and the CPP has to go and buy 100 billion in treasuries. That's how easy it is. People think the Canada Pension Plan is protected by the Constitution. It is not. It's just an act of parliament. It's a great big bag of money for a gifted corporate central banking looter like Mark Carney to come in and try and take. Another aspect of what's happening in Canada, Shopify CEO slams Ottawa's $40 million Nokia bribe as a total brain dead idea. The federal government says Nokia's new Ottawa expansion will create more than 300 jobs of a $40 million publicly funded research and development push, but not everyone is convinced it's a win. At a groundbreaking event in Canada yesterday, several cabinet ministers highlighted Nokia's plan to expand its lab facilities and add new R&D projects involving AI, machine learning, next generation 5G technology, all buzzwords. Ottawa's putting 40 million in. We'll just skip to the punchline. Toby Lutke, CEO of Ottawa-based Shopify, Ottawa-based Canadian, responded directly to Industry Minister Melanie Joly on X today with a sharply critical take. What you're actually doing here is to bribe Nokia to put these jobs into Canada by paying hundreds of thousands of dollars per job from taxpayer money. What this does is to lower the cost basis of Nokia per employee, lower the cost basis of Nokia. This has been going on for decades. It's the same thing, this unified Canada that Daniel Smith is so dedicated to, which robs you, disenfranchises you, makes it so you don't have a government that you elect. You think you do when you elect Parliament, but Parliament appoints the government. This Governor General's office that runs everything in this country, they can literally spend your money without even passing a budget. This country that has charter rights that can be suspended, all of the things I've talked about with our appointed Senate and all the nonsense that goes on in this unified Canada, with the TFW, Temporary Foreign Worker Program, the IMP program, which brings masses of immigrants here to do low skilled jobs, which you, the taxpayer, are forced to subsidize. You're forced to subsidize your own unemployment so that these foreign corporations can take all the profits and leave. I saw Mr. Guy Felicia during the World Series proudly sporting his coffee crisp bar with a big Nestle label right on it, Nestle being a Swiss company. Well, Nokia is not a Canadian company either. You're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars per job. You're handing it to Nokia. You're not giving it to Shopify. You're not investing it in small Canadian businesses. The same thing went on with internet. Even though you can say that Rogers Communications and BCE are Canadian companies, billions of dollars were given to them to provide high-speed internet to rural customers. They never provided decent internet. It took Starlink to come in here and actually give people in rural areas decent quality internet. And what did Ontario do? But rip up a contract with Starlink as if somehow that was going to be a win over the United States and over Donald Trump. Now, setting aside Trump for a moment, we'll save that for a separate video. This unified Canada, this notion that everybody's dedicated to, what is Canada good at? It loots the taxpayer. It denies citizens their fundamental human rights and refuses to even talk about giving them better rights. It doesn't want to give you ballot initiatives. It doesn't want to give you the right of recall of your politicians or your judges or anything. It doesn't want to give you greater autonomy and freedom. It is a backward system. And it takes at the barrel of a gun, because that's what government is. They have the guns. They have the legal guns. And they have the force through the law to use those guns. They tax you at source. They take your money. And then they dedicate your money to a temporary foreign worker program or an IMP program, which gives your money away to other interests outside of this nation for their benefit. The Shopify deal is just, or sorry, it's not the Shopify deal, forgive me, the Nokia deal is just another example. It's just like the $2.4 million container homes that Mark Carney is promising to build. Just so happens that his assets, his stock holdings, which are in a so-called blind trust, will benefit By valuation appreciation, he will get rich while the taxpayer is forced to pay a really expensive rate for container homes to shove seniors in after 45 years of working and paying taxes. Like Olivia Chow, not long ago in one of my previous videos, stood in front of container homes and was proud to say that it was affordable housing. Canada's going downhill before your eyes. The system's not getting any better. They're robbing you. They're literally starting to print money at the Bank of Canada again, starting December 16th. They're going to walk it across the. They're not even going to walk across the road. They're going to create the money out of thin air. They're going to give it right to the government of Canada, and then the government of Canada is going to give it to Nokia, or they're going to give it to other foreign companies through subsidies. They're going to export it overseas. They're going to spend it however they want. And a lot of that spending right now benefits Brookfield. And now, as I've been covering for months, you have a prime minister who's coming for your pension. Remember, those pensions as they are right now, they don't even want to invest in Canada. The vast majority of their money is parked overseas or parked in the United States. Everybody's scared of doing business in Canada. And it's only going to get worse as they turn the money printers on again. And when they do that, they rob you. They rob the purchasing power of your dollars, and then they give that purchasing power away to their buddies and their friends. So once again, I have to ask, why is everybody so dedicated to what Canada is? Why is everybody so proud? Why does Pierre Poilievre come out and say, we are proud of our Westminster tradition? What's there to be proud of? It's a tradition designed for kings and nobles. It's not a Republican tradition. It's not a Democratic tradition. People who call Canada a democracy are missing the point. It's a constitutional monarchy, and that's how it's run from the top down by technocrats, by a technocracy that Mark Carney in his book Values believes in. This stuff isn't hyperbole. If you actually read the book, if you understand the actions that are being undertaken on your behalf with your money, using your laws against you, what is there that we're hanging on to? But that is a separate issue from what's happening in Alberta. Look, I'll finish on this note because I want your feedback about whether or not you can tolerate this setup and level of audio quality while I'm not at home. The issue is not whether Daniel Smith supports independence or not. To me, that's a non-issue. There's enough energy in the Alberta Prosperity Project. There's enough energy in the UCP for that on its own. The issue is the rededication to net zero. The issue is the loyalty to a Canada which is holding everybody down. And the overriding concept of what I do on this channel, I don't want to play politics. I've done that. I don't want to do it anymore. I did it on my terms. I did it my way. But this channel is about telling the truth and being critical of everybody. Everybody. Mark Carney, Pierre Poilievre, Daniel Smith, Doug Ford, that red liberal over in Ontario. Because too many people are playing partisan politics and they're gaslighting each other. They're gaslighting themselves. They're lying to themselves about what all this stuff means. And I believe there's at least a few thousand people out there who just want somebody to at least try and tell the truth. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm Frank Vaughn. I'll see you in the next one.